It all began with a single command, one word that was supposed to save a life. But it was what happened after that command that changed everything. Stay. That word echoed louder in Officer Mark Rivers' mind than the gunfire that surrounded him. It echoed even louder than the sirens, louder than the panicked screams of bystanders, louder than the chaos of a midday shootout unfolding in the streets of Baltimore. It was a word meant to protect. To shield. But it was also a word that, when disobeyed, became a lifeline that saved his own. Before we continue, if you believe in loyalty, second chances, or the incredible bond between humans and animals, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales. These stories don't just touch hearts, they change lives. Mark Rivers wasn't a rookie. At 39, he'd seen things most people only read about. The child overdoses. The domestic calls that ended in tragedy. The night spent staring out at empty streets, wondering if this job was breaking him more than it was building him. But through every high-speed pursuit, every sobering loss, every late-night shift with numb fingers on the steering wheel, he had Rex. Rex was no ordinary K9. Found as a near-feral pup in an abandoned lot and taken in by the department's rehab training program, Rex was stubborn, clever, and full of fight. Most thought he wouldn't make it. But Mark saw something different in the dog's eyes, something he recognized. A weariness. A fury. A history. And maybe that's why their bond formed so quickly. They were both survivors of something invisible. Mark was going through his own storm at the time. A painful divorce, the strain of losing contact with his teenage daughter, and an injury that had nearly ended his career. The badge didn't feel like purpose anymore, it felt like weight. But Rex? Rex gave him purpose again. Early morning jogs with that dog relit a spark in him. That unspoken connection, they moved like two halves of the same thought. It was a Tuesday when it happened. Mark had just stopped by a school, giving a short talk to kids about safety and introducing them to Rex. The dog was a hit, of course, tail wagging, tongue out, surrounded by sticky fingers and shy smiles. That moment felt peaceful, normal. But peace, Mark knew, rarely stayed long in a city like Baltimore. Just after noon, a 211 call hit the radio. Armed bank robbery. Shots fired. Mark turned to Rex in the passenger seat of the cruiser. Rex stared back with unblinking focus. No hesitation. They both knew what was coming. Mark gripped the wheel and sped toward the chaos. By the time they arrived, the street was already sealed off. Civilians were scattering. Officers were behind barricades. And up ahead, two heavily armed suspects were using an armored truck as cover, spraying gunfire without restraint. The sound was deafening. Automatic rounds pierced the air, sending glass and debris flying. Mark ducked behind a white sedan, his vest pressing into the pavement, weapon drawn. Rex crouched beside him, muscles coiled. Then, movement. One suspect broke cover, darting across the street with a rifle. Instinct screamed at Mark to act. Rex shifted beside him, ready to charge. That's when Mark spoke the word. Stay. He didn't think, he just said it. A command drilled into them during every training drill. Protect your K9. Don't let emotion lead. But this wasn't training. This was war. Mark raised his pistol, aimed, but a shot ricocheted near his head and forced him down. Rex didn't move, not yet. He waited. Until he didn't. Mark turned his head just in time to see Rex bolt. It was like watching a bullet fired from a living weapon. Rex charged straight into the hail of bullets, eyes locked on the gunman. Mark screamed, but it was too late. The gunman noticed, raised his weapon, but not fast enough. Rex lunged, jaws clamping onto the man's arm just as he pulled the trigger. The shot went wild, hitting nothing. The rifle dropped. They tumbled to the ground. The second suspect panicked, rising from cover, and in that single second of exposure, responding officers fired, taking him down before he could aim. Silence fell, save for sirens and the ragged breathing of every soul in that street. Mark scrambled to his feet, heart in his throat. He ran to Rex, dreading what he'd find. Blood soaked Rex's fur. But it wasn't his. The first gunman lay on the ground, restrained and screaming, his arm torn and twisted. Rex stood beside him, panting, eyes scanning for more threats. He had obeyed none of his orders, but had saved Mark's life and probably many others. The footage from street cams spread fast. News stations dubbed Rex the Baltimore hero. The video showed everything: Mark's command, Rex's moment of hesitation, and his fearless charge. The story touched hearts around the world. Donations poured into the department's K-9 unit. But for Mark, it wasn't about headlines. It was about that night when the crowds were gone and the medals put away. They sat together on the porch, moonlight washing over the quiet street. Mark leaned down, brushing the fur between Rex's ears. "You disobeyed me," he whispered with a laugh, voice cracking with emotion. "And you saved my life." In the weeks that followed, Mark took a hard look at his own life. That moment with Rex had cracked something open. A door he had closed long ago. He began therapy again. He started reaching out to his daughter. And eventually, he made a decision to retire from street patrol and start a new program, Paws of Honor, an initiative that trained rescue dogs for veterans, trauma survivors, and former officers battling PTSD. The first dog in that program? Rex. Not as a trainee, but as the teacher. Kids loved him. Veterans wept at the comfort he offered. Former officers opened up after years of silence. And Mark? He found healing in the very thing that had almost broken him: his badge, his past, his fear. He often told the story, not of the gunfight, not of the danger, but of that split second when he realized loyalty isn't always about following orders. Sometimes it's about breaking them. For love. For duty. For the people who mean everything. Rex lived out the rest of his years not behind the wheel of a cruiser, but surrounded by children, veterans, and healing hearts. He passed peacefully one spring morning, head in Mark's lap, a soft breeze blowing through the trees outside their training center. Mark held him until the end, tears falling freely. "I told you to stay," he whispered, voice breaking. "And you stayed in my life, in my heart, far longer than I deserved." If this story touched your heart, if you've ever felt the comfort, loyalty, or unconditional love of an animal, please like this video, subscribe to Pawsitive Tales, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that heroes come in all shapes and species. We have a special request: please drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever shared a powerful bond with an animal that changed your life? We read every story, and your voice might inspire someone else who needs it today.